I think I came in like 8th out of 8 in my age group.
There you go.
That year.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
You have to have that humbling first
Yes.
experience, or you don't appreciate it
Yes.
nearly as much.
Yep.
What's up, folks? Welcome to a complicated episode of Coaches on Couches.
Being mobile now.
We're
First time on a different couch.
We are
Cheating on the
attempting-
Costco couch.
Well, at some point we had to legitimize Coaches on Couches.
Yes, the plural.
We pretty much have been Coaches on Couch
yeah.
forever. So we've
Expanding.
got Phillip Young, the machine, on the couch today, or this couch today. It's a nice couch.
It is a plush
Killer
couch.
couch at Philip's
solid.
place of employment. And so we're going to be getting into Phillip and his past and how far he's come as a triathlete in the last, what? I mean, you were into triathlon for how long before?
Before you started coaching me, I think I was like 3 or 4 years in. I want to say it was the last year Memphis in May was in Millington is when I really first started getting into triathlon.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we've been coaching Phillip for roughly 4 years, maybe a little bit longer. And he's made some pretty good progress. But first, shout-outs.
Shout-outs.
Shouting out. What you got, Flintstone?
I've got my shout-out going to Katie Compton.
Oh, there you go.
Katie Compton, 15-time cyclocross in a row. 15 in a row.
Yep.
National championships for Katie Compton.
Yep.
And she wrecks house overseas as well. Muddy course. But we also got to give a shout out to Stephen Hyde.
We got to.
Which Dale did not realize that he has raced against Stephen Hyde way back in 2012, I think.
11 or 12.
Tour de Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
He won Stephen Hyde won the road race, and I was trying to find a picture of Dale. Dale got like 6th or so.
Somewhere there's a picture of me chasing him up the last hill.
I think they called him like the kind of a throwback to what's his face, the flying tomato.
Yeah.
Because he's got the red hair and stuff. Kind of like our boy Phillip here.
Yeah. Gingers unite.
But yeah, cyclocross nationals, muddy, sloppy, nasty race. So shout out to all the people who were there.
Yeah, those are some pretty solid shout outs. Phillip, you got any? Come on, man.
Let's see.
Come up with something.
Well, one of my buddies did the cyclocross nationals, and like his pictures are awesome. So my buddy Pete Murray, who did I did Worlds with him in Australia. So he was out there at that race too, and he said it was the longest 10K run he's ever done, where carrying a bike. So
that's awesome.
And then everything was just covered in 2-inch thick mud afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
So,
nasty.
Yeah, I'm sure there was plenty of broken parts.
Yeah.
Derailleurs, hangers, chains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome.
What do you got? You got anyone, Dale?
I got nothing right now.
Yeah, it's kind of a slower time of year right now.
Yeah, slow time of year. Hadn't had anybody race last week. So
this is probably the first week in how many weeks that we haven't had
all year
an athlete racing.
It's usually out of 52 weeks, there may be like 5 that people don't race.
Yeah, it's just these next few
Holiday
weeks, really.
weekends
Yeah,
and stuff.
Yeah, there's always somebody racing, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it keeps you on your toes. All right, so we're gonna get into talking to Phillip here. So, Phillip, give everybody kind of an idea of your life scenario as far as family, work, all that kind of stuff, just so people know that you're not a professional athlete.
Right.
We are in your place of employment, which they were nice enough to let us kind of bogart your boardroom here.
Yeah.
By the way, super nice boardroom.
Yeah.
Apparently the biggest table.
Biggest boardroom table in Memphis, from what I've been told.
That's a challenge.
Yeah, come on. That's right. So this is Pyramex Safety that we're at today. I've been here 5 years in March. Grew up in Memphis. I've worked in real estate, but sales for the most part for most of my life. So, to anybody who's done anything in sales, that like you're pretty much you can always stay doing something.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. I'm a territory sales manager, so I travel a little bit too, usually about once a month for about a week or so at a time. So that can always be challenging. Dale does a lot with me on that. I'm saying, okay, during that week, you're only going to be able to run and do strength work most of the time. So figuring out adjusting schedules and stuff.
Balance,
on that. Yeah. I'm married to Laura Kate.
Shout
she's
out,
awesome.
Laura Kate.
Shout out. She is obviously my main support system. Takes care of me and keeps me out of trouble. So grew up in Memphis.
Did you play sports growing up?
Yes. Kind of grew up playing a little bit of everything. Basketball was always my favorite, but I played basketball, baseball, soccer, ultimate frisbee, racquetball. I grew up working at the Bartlett Rec Center. Pretty much as soon as I turned 16, I was a lifeguard there. Yeah. Worked there on and off through high school and college and even a little bit after college. So I think I was there like 8 years total. Oh, wow. But I did everything I could there. Played racquetball up there a ton. Played tennis at some tennis courts around the corner. So I kind of grew up always playing just anything ever I could.
I think you're probably one of the only people, you and probably Adam Kolesny, who rival Funston in height. Mm-hmm. And so anytime I get into a picture with this guy over here, I feel very short.
Dale's like at his shoulder.
One, that, and I can't outsmile you, so there's no way.
What you need to do is what my dad does. Anytime we take a picture together, is he puts his arm around me and then stands up on his tippy toes and pushes down. Yeah. So,
yeah.
We had a long stretch. My brother would always find his way like uphill. Like, how do you find a uphill spot
find
for
the
each
right
picture?
angle.
Yeah, he'd always. But now he's bigger than me. So
So kind of give a brief idea of how you got into triathlon, how, why.
Yeah, that's always interesting
and
to
then
hear.
kind of like your first triathlon experience.
Okay.
That's always a good story.
Oh yeah. So I grew up swimming was kind of my background. Elementary school, I swam for the Central Flames out at Central Church.
Shout out.
Shout out. Back in the day. That was mainly, middle school, early elementary school. So swimming was always my background. And then, like I said, I lifeguarded for like 8 years of my life. So it was always around a pool. Uh-huh. Had some good coaches that worked up at the Bartlett Rec Center and stuff a ton. So swimming's kind of what got me into it. And then Adam Kolesny, one of my good buddies I've known for forever, was always a big runner.
Good looking dude.
Yeah, he's a model.
Shout out
to AK. He got me into running, and we'd go up to Shelby Farms and run the little Chickasaw 5K or whatever up there all the time, and that would be our thing that we would do. And he got really into running, and then he did Memphis in May triathlon, I think the Olympic distance himself, and then we kind of started riding bikes together with a couple other folks in Bartlett when we lived there at the time, and B-Town's Finest was our group, the TMF. Team TMF.
Yeah.
And we would just do a bunch of riding together. We started off doing relays. And so Adam would run, obviously. I would swim, and my buddy Mike Rose would bike for us. So we did that all together. And I remember, like I said, it was the last year in Millington before it went, down to Mississippi.
Down to Tunica.
Down to Tunica. And we'd relay it. And I remember doing the swim for the Olympic distance and getting done, like sprinting over there. Then Mike took off on the bike. And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, well, I could probably do more than this, than just the swim.
Yeah.
And it was so fun, just that atmosphere being around it. So I think my first triathlon that I did all myself was Dragonfly that same year. And I just remember it was so hot.
That was before they moved it. They moved the date. Yeah. So it was always blazing.
Yeah,
hot.
it was
that
always
July.
Yeah, it was terrible hot. And like back then they had it was like sprinkler tents afterwards.
Yeah.
And I remember getting done and just like laying on the ground in the sprinkler tent and just like letting water fall on myself, and like I sat there for a while. And actually, Adam had a little boat, and we were taking the boat out on Sardis. He was like, "Come on, we're gonna go get some beers and go out on the lake and stuff." And I was like, "I need to lay here for a little while longer and hydrate." So
give me an hour, please.
Yeah.
It means a lot. Philip passed up a beer.
Yeah, it's
means
true.
a lot.
Yeah. I think I came in like 8th out of 8 in my age group.
There you go.
That year.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
You have to have that humbling first experience, or you don't appreciate it nearly as much.
Yep.
I know I think I told my story a little bit when we talked, and I almost died in the first one. And then I was probably like almost dead last in my age group, but it makes you
wonder. Don't let one of the big things for anyone listening, like don't let your first race experience be your judge on how you can perform within that sport. So Phillip would, I got last in my age group. If he'd have stopped there, the rest of the tale of what we're going to be talking about later, with your national championship win, and that would have never happened. So use your first one, keep building experience, and like treat this as a process, not I'm going to be terrific. The first race I do, I thought I was going to. And that was a similar story. I ended up like 85th or 90th or something out of 110 people.
Well, when you're like a competitive-minded person and you get into a sport like this, you're like, I'll be fine. And then
how hard could it be?
You get totally demolished and humbled. And then, but that competitiveness is also what makes you say,
it's a motivator.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to keep working at this because if I don't, I'm going to just keep.
I view it as only upside. Really?
I mean,
if you start at the bottom, there's only one way to go.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So at what point, like, what was the thing that kind of made you, like, think about even looking into a coach, let alone choosing one, but made you think about maybe a coach could help me, or that's kind of, I need that help or want that guidance or whatever. What was the tipping point for you?
Yeah. So when I first started, I guess, racing and stuff in general, I kind of just did my own thing, and like I'd do some group rides back when RB's was out in Arlington, Bartlett area. Did a lot of group rides with them, and then I'd run with Adam and a few other folks. But it kind of was just like whatever I felt like doing training wise. It wasn't necessarily
whatever my friend is doing.
Absolutely. And Adam and I signed up to do New Orleans Half Ironman. Went down there. I think. We did it like 4 years in a row, and it was like the swim got canceled 3 of the first 4 years. So and it was really hot and humid down there. So we would just take kind of a plan that we'd find online. Just like a free program, and hey, this is what you need to do, kind of for training wise. But I think when we first met was probably Memphis in May, one of those years when it was in Tunica. I think it was the year it rained a ton, and it was just super muddy. And I just remember seeing you guys and talking to you guys a little bit afterwards at the little pool party award ceremony that we had. And then I knew a lot of the other guys, a lot of people that I kind of looked up to in racing that I knew. Billy Toon was a guy I followed for a long time that kind of got me. He worked with me years ago in high school at the Bartlett Rec Center and kind of got me. He was one of the first persons that got me to buy a road bike. And I'd go road biking with Billy, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I can go out and ride. I'll go out and ride 5 miles on my own. I can go ride with Billy. And then he'd take me out in the hills of Arlington, and I would just he'd just leave me or something, and I'd have to. We'd end up working it out, but I was like, that was another humbling thing. But kind of decided I was like, I need structure and a plan. I've kind of gone as far as I'm going to go on my own, just kind of winging it. So.
That's a pretty common, I guess, story is, you get into it. Obviously there's so much free information out there. You can find a plan for anything for free. But it comes down to, okay, I've got a plan. Okay, now I still have to structure it into my day. I have to adapt it when things get crazy. And I have to adapt it for my own ability level.
I think that's one of the big differences with like a more of a custom coaching plan versus like a pre-built program is the adjustments that are made based on progress. So being able to see, there's the
dinner bell.
Dinner bell's going off. We probably can't hear it, but they've got this massive bell that I guess they ding for lunchtime. I almost hit it when we started, but
everybody would have rushed up.
It would have caused chaos. But I think that's one of the big things. You need to be able to adjust your plan around your life. Be able to adapt it when you do have vacation and can't work out, or if you're progressing faster than what the program is built for. You need to make those changes. Otherwise, you're holding yourself back and you don't even know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adam said you're not smiling right now. Got it. Success.
Boom.
We made a bet that we couldn't get Phillip to not smile for more than about 3 seconds. We made him think too much.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So kind of what I wanted to get into is, when we first started with you, it was kind of, I always love looking back on athletes' progress. So, when you first came to us, you were, it was almost like you were kind of happy with an age group placing.
Oh yeah.
Even just a top 3 in an age group. And, now at this point, 4 years later, now you're not only a consistent contender for the overall win in the local racing scene, you pulled off a aquabike age group national championship this year, and qualified for worlds a number of times. Without really, if you never took the time to really look back on that, you would lose really how much progress that you've made. So, kind of get into a few things that you feel like have been the biggest difference maker for you to go from that kind of age group placing into really being a contender.
Yeah, I think, and you guys talk about it on a lot of these, pretty much every, coaches on couches, but the consistency side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think going back
dirty
to
C word.
That dirty C word. That's right. Going back to talking about before I started, you started coaching me, I might go, depending on a work schedule and things like that, I might go 3 or 4 days with workouts, and then I might go 3 or 4 days not doing anything.
Yeah.
And the structure that y'all put together, I remember even when I first started being coached by you, probably the first 2 months, I couldn't complete the structured workouts that you had necessarily, because for me, I wasn't at that level fitness-wise or able to do it. And not just wear myself out and kill myself on it. So I think, the consistency part is definitely a big part of it. And then finding ways to just always to make sure you're enjoying it and keep doing it. Because if you don't enjoy it and you don't love it, you're not going to want to do it anyway. I think that's a big part of it.
Consistency is huge. I think, for you, you've communicated over the years very well, with how you're feeling, stuff you have coming up.
Yeah.
So that makes it so much easier to plan the training, the quality around, your travel and your work and family stuff. And so that helps consistency alone. Yeah. But at the same time, we've always had some sort of a goal in mind.
Yeah.
Whether it's not always an event goal. We do set event goals, but then, we've always had kind of little focuses or little goals.
Sure.
Especially through the off season when there's not really a race in sight.
Yeah.
Most people would kind of chill.
Yeah.
But we've kind of picked a limiter
to work on
and work on
Absolutely.
it. I think that's been a huge thing for you. The consistency, working on limiters consistently, especially in this off season time of year. And then you talked about keeping it fun.
Yeah.
There's always been times where I can kind of tell you're getting
tired,
just worn out with the whole structure and everything. Yep. And you try not to push as hard. Yep. Enforce the super structure on people. Yeah. Because that can burn people out, and
absolutely.
8 weeks of really, really, really hard structure will.
There's a lot that 6 weeks. 6 weeks is too much for some folks. Learning that as well is a big part of that coach athlete relationship, is knowing how long can you push someone before. Yeah. Usually it's up here.
It is a lot.
Goes first, where it's like.
Well, I think that's one thing I've always liked about triathlon. Even I like doing the road racing and crits and messing around in that and doing running races. But I like about triathlon is I can always kind of do something different. Versus you spend too much time running or spend too much time biking, and you it's a good way to mix it up. And I think it burns you out. I think even like this past year, I bought a cross bike, and messing around on that, and like getting on trails for the first time just to do something different, and see a different side of things versus, being out on the road all the time. So it was a nice,
out on the
fun
road,
experience.
the same loop.
The same run loop, the same bike loop. You do the same swim workout or something, or go swim at the same time or whatever. So it's nice to mix it up.
And on my end, a couple other things that come to mind that have really kind of helped springboard things over the years. One is that you're a super positive person by nature, which is great, because even when we don't get the result that we're looking for, you always, always able to find like the good thing that happened within the race to kind of, you don't ever get down for more than like half a day, for
24-hour rule.
Yeah.
You just cry it out at night, and the next morning you're ready to go.
Yeah. If you have a bad race, or if you have a great race, 24 hours to kind of think on it, and then you start back over the next day. Yeah. So,
and at the same time, like one of the big things is you've trusted us to say like, hey, let's not do long course for a couple seasons. That's where everybody goes, but we've been able to reel you in on and doing mostly short course races in the last two seasons or so, and you've gotten faster. Yeah, I mean across the board. So the last thing I would say would be, you've allowed some races to be training races.
Yes,
we know on the front end that they're not intended to be going for a win or anything like that, but we'll set like a little goal in it, like, hey Phillip, swim as hard as you friggin' can and let's just see what happens.
Yep.
Because we've never done that before. Like, let's just see if you can actually swim harder than you have been and still ride at your ability, and those are the things that we are able to experiment with, because you're not dead set on having this awesome race every race.
I think that's a fault that a lot of people fall into, is wanting to be fresh and on peak form. And if you're doing, one race a year, say you're doing long course and you just have one, okay, that's one thing. But, if you're a runner or a cyclist that you've got, or even triathlon, if you're going short course, if you've got multiple events and each time you want to have rested legs going into it, you end up detraining because you're racing, instead of racing being something that you're going to help elevate fitness. You end up sort of detraining, and it's a problem we see a ton with like your category 5 and category 4 cyclists, because their races are so short. It's a hour-long event. They're sacrificing a 3 or 4 hour training ride for an hour-long event, and if they do that too much, the fitness falls off.
That's exactly what I was going to say as an example of a train-through race. Like, I feel like, the Tiger Lane Crit Series, usually, in April and stuff, when they do stuff like that, there's usually, that's the beginning of tri-season. You got Rebel Man, Thunder in the Forest. You're coming up Memphis in May or Chattanooga. So, I mean, you could race in April. Some years, I may race every weekend, and then also the crits, when they were on Wednesdays and stuff, and it can be really busy. And but those are great. For me, not doing a lot, I'm not doing 12 crit races a year. I may do just a handful of the local ones around here that I like doing. But for me, I'm not necessarily trying to go out there. I want to do as well as I can. But for me, those are great training opportunities because it's just good race efforts.
Yeah, Phillip's the one we'd see running during the next. We'd be racing after him, and Phillip be doing his.
Because Dale had me doing a brick afterwards.
little brick run.
That's another good point, is that you've dabbled in other disciplines that just have elevated, like doing some of like the Memphis Mile, swimming the Memphis Mile, or like some of the, like we did the that open swim meet, or doing road racing, crit racing, time trial, all that stuff that like elevates that one area of triathlon, and we push harder than we probably ever would if we were doing specific triathlon training. So you kind of get a big idea of like where the ceiling really is.
Yep.
Because if you never test the ceiling, and it's so much easier to test the ceiling in a race.
Sure.
So like, you test the ceiling and then, okay, well, we've been training at this zone, but in that race, he hit a new threshold.
Yeah.
So we might as well up the game.
Well, and to your point, what you were talking about, like, what I like about the last 2 years doing all these short course stuff is that, like, typically doing an Ironman or a half Ironman, most people aren't doing 5 of those, a year. It's just it's a big world. They're doing 1 or 2 races and they pick that and go for it. Whereas doing a lot of the short course stuff, like you said, while you may not be fresh sometimes, it's still a good opportunity. Like, all right, let's say I have a bad race this weekend. Well, I'm racing again in 2 weeks. So, I have a chance to kind of...
Your season's not hinging on one performance where you could get sick, you could get injured.
The weather could be bad. You may have not had enough pH in your body,
Bam.
And
Shout out.
your nutrition.
I still have the shameless plug.
So, the shameless plug. So, I mean, there's all these other factors, and then the short course side of it makes it fun where you can say, okay, I mean, you can, to some degree, kind of go out and fake it for an hour, versus being out there for 8 hours or 4-hour race or whatever it is you're doing.
Well, being out in that environment, too, with other people that are competing, it's an exciting thing that helps kind of boost, regardless of your performance, that's something that kind of helps boost your morale and your desire to train.
I know we're getting a little off topic here, but that's another whole thing was Phillip has stayed motivated, I think in part because we haven't necessarily put all the eggs in one basket all the time. Like with a lot of times with long course, like that's the goal race. And that's like, if you have a crap day and you've put 6 months of training into it,
that sucks.
It hits you a little bit harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
To where like short courses, you recover from it quicker. You can move on quicker and just get back to training. So I think that's been a big part of your consistency and improvement over the years. Let's talk a little bit about this season.
Okay.
Because it has been an interesting season
long
for you.
One too.
Probably the longest season you've had ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we worked on running and you kept on doing House of Pain over last winter, doing it again this winter. It's been kind of a staple in your off season.
Absolutely.
But we kind of were going into Rebel Man because that's kind of one of your favorite early season, being a rebel yourself.
Yep.
One of your favorite races. So we know we wanted to, it's not a big race, but we wanted to do well
First
there.
Race of the year. Yeah. You want to see what you've done with all the off-season
work. Put the fitness to test.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we got into Rebel Man with some good fitness, and you're getting off. You're almost into transition. You're leading.
Yeah.
Had a good swim. Smashed the bike as usual, in the lead, and going into transition, you can finish the story.
So
here.
Coming into transition, you're coming in and you go up a hill and you take a left turn, another left turn, and that's traditionally what we've done in the past. And we're going to the last left-hand turn, and the lead police car had kind of stopped, and I think they weren't sure which way to go, and then the volunteers weren't sure which way to send me, and they were kind of standing where the turn was. So I kind of reacted and didn't know what to do, and I think I braked too hard or caught my foot and ended up flying over the handlebars. And when I did, originally my calf cramped up. I remember it was the first thing I felt, and that was the first thing I noticed, and then landed on my arm and shoulder pretty good. Had some good road rash, but the calf is what I felt immediately. And I got back up on the bike. Bars were kind of bent down a little bit and moved, and just kind of struggled into transition and realized that my arm hurts pretty good. And I couldn't figure out at that time where it hurt. I just remember it just being pretty much all of that
not
hurting.
So much here or here, just like right there.
Yeah. So I get in transition, get off the bike. It was really cold that day, so I think I had worn a jacket on the bike. And I tried to take the jacket off because at this point I'm hot from the bike. And I knew Adam's chasing me, Bubba's chasing me, Yancey's chasing me. All these guys typically faster runners than me. Yep. So I know that they're behind me. And I've spent, a couple minutes on the ground here, trying to get my wits about me and moving slow back into transition. So it's like, all right, well, I gotta get it going. So I put my shoes on, take off running. And I ended up breaking my elbow and then cracked my wrist as well, which explains why all of that kind of hurt.
That whole region,
that whole arm. And I didn't realize until I started running, I was like, all right, the calf doesn't hurt anymore. And I was like, yeah, something hurts. And I could move the arm. If you've ever had any of those injuries in your arm, you move it just a little bit one way or another, like it'll just be excruciating pain.
Shooting,
a lot of nerves that run through there.
Yeah, a lot of nerves. And like I remember when I was running, it's just like you could move it a certain way. I finally just kind of just held it as much as I could in one spot. But it probably worked out too a little bit to some degree, because I think it was one of my best runs of the year off the bike.
It was the first time you ran under 20
on a 5K.
Minutes on a 5K off the bike.
Yeah, I think it was the first one I'd done, even on a scratch one too, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think I'd been close to it.
But you still took the overall win. Bloodied, battered.
Yeah.
And and that kind of set off. It kind of derailed a little bit, the first part of the season, because you were, I guess, in a sling for a short time, and then
couldn't swim for a little bit. I could bike as long as I didn't put any pressure on it, and I really couldn't run hardly at all.
Yeah.
I
still remember when I almost had to smack you when you showed up to the fast group ride with your wrist, and you broke a spoke. And almost
Oh,
if you were gone down again.
Remember that.
Oh yeah. Yep. I think it was like one of the little yard sign metal pieces that come out in the road on Wolf River, and I got so nervous because I saw it wrapping around my spoke, and I was like, all right, this is eventually going to lock. So, I was like,
fortunately,
I didn't want to tell Dale that it happened.
Brian,
I ratted him out quick.
I was trying to decide whether to show up at your house.
Give
you a smacky.
Yep. But when you're, I think when I was hurt during all that time, man, nothing makes you want to go and do workouts more when you can't go and do workouts.
I've tested that numerous times.
Yep.
So what were like a couple of things, briefly, what were a couple of things that kind of got you through that stretch of downtime, forced downtime, so to speak? I mean, we didn't stop. We didn't stop.
But, I think the biggest thing was I didn't want to lose too much. I knew I was going to lose some of the gains that I had made, because I think it was probably about a month and a half recovery-wise and stuff. So just trying to stay consistently doing something. I remember even like when I finally did start swimming, I was like, okay, I can't really pull with this arm, so I'll just go out and do kick drills. Or I could swim. I could swim a little bit, like if I wore fins and did light pulling, or like mainly left-handed pulling, and just figuring out what I could do and finding stuff to work. So obviously I spent a lot of time on the trainer, trying not to put any pressure on that elbow. And actually it worked out well too. Just getting on the trainer on the TT bike was more comfortable sitting with the pad there versus being on the hoods.
Putting more pressure on your elbow.
Yeah. And a lot of times going through injury like that, like the workouts you can do, it's more about the mind. You get so used to exercise and training, and that being derailed can mess with the mind so much. So being able to do something and listening to the body obviously is
figuring
huge.
out. I mean, anything you can do to continue to not only be active, but what can we do? If your upper body's in pain or upper body's kind of hurt, what can you do lower body wise? And that's what we went to, doing a lot of kick stuff. And,
absolutely.
We had to sit up on the trainer or be in aero, but that was just.
And since I couldn't stand up, you would tell me like, all right, if you start getting tired, get off the bike for a couple of minutes, stretch around. So, because you can't stand up like you normally could on a trainer to, give your butt a rest. So I mean, that was, from my side and from your side, that was kind of not the start of the season that we wanted. And that kind of, one of the mainstays over the last couple of years had been Memphis MA. And, so that, didn't necessarily, pan out the way we had hoped with having such good fitness coming into, the idea was great fitness coming into the first part of the season, kind of trailing it through Rebel Man into Memphis MA. And then kind of taking a short breather before we kind of built up to Nats and Worlds.
But so kind of go into kind of how you felt about that middle part of the season, even leading into nationals.
Yeah. So, I mean, Memphis in May, I think, was able to do it and able to race. Was still kind of, I think, even the week going into it, was unsure if I should do all right, maybe I should just do the sprint and not the Olympic, even though I'd signed up for both. And ended up saying, okay, we'll do the sprint, we'll see how you feel, and then if you feel good enough to do the Olympic, do the Olympic. Ended up doing both. I think I swam with a brace on.
We were talking about that yesterday. I was like, did Phillip swam with a brace?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, swam with a brace on. So my swim obviously wasn't as good as it normally would have been, but it was still fun to get out there and mix it up with everybody and stuff. And then really honestly, I think after that was able to kind of find a little bit more consistency getting back to normal. And trying to get stuff back to kind of targeting age group nationals and in Cleveland being kind of the next big goal to get to. Yeah. Mainly I think in between Memphis in May and nationals we did Heat Wave, did a couple other local races. So nothing too Heat Wave being probably the longest event, but that one wasn't too bad and got back to normal. I'd say probably, I don't know if the numbers were quite the same, but maybe in a couple of months, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I think actually at Heatwave, the numbers were, actually I think you were slightly above, but I think the time was maybe just a smidge different. Yeah. Mainly, I think the wind that day was it's usually like the opposite direction. Yeah. And I think we had that headwind coming all the way back.
Yep, that's right.
And so normally you get that tail.
Yeah, coming back home. Yeah.
But, and then, we were building toward Cleveland and, in an effort to get a world spot for 2019.
Yep.
So kind of let's just roll through the Cleveland experience, because that was another one that was a little weird.
Yeah. So, Olympic, it's just the opposite of Memphis in May. They do Olympic the first day and then sprint the next day. And then for us, our age group was the first wave to go off. So for the Olympic, swim was a little long. It got choppier as the day went.
Yeah.
So I remember getting out of the water and just being pissed about my swim. It was like, oh, Dale and everybody's in front of me. I was like, it's like they're so far out, and like all the people that I could see in front of me. And I was like, this is like I'm swimming like a half Ironman time.
I looked down and I was like, I should just stop now.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I remember Eric and everybody that was out there watching us that day, I think, said that like everybody that came past looked pissed coming out of the water, just unhappy with it. Had a good bike that day. That was a tough run course. Yeah. I think overall, I was pretty happy with the run, how it went. But there was a lot of good hills on that run course.
Yeah, you have to, in the run time, you have to consider the course in itself.
Yeah.
You get that nice drag coming transition.
Right out of transition.
And then it's pretty flat to rolly. Yep. And then you get that one freaking
parking lot.
You have to go down that like 20% grade.
Yep.
Do the loop and then come back up it.
Yep.
And then you got to do it again.
And then do the whole thing again, the whole lap. Yep, second lap. And I felt real good the first lap, and I remember the second lap starting to fall apart a little bit. And I think that's where you caught me, was in that parking lot one. And you even said something to me about it later. It was like, it looked like on that hill your cadence started dropping the kind of the last 2 miles of the race after that hill.
Yeah.
So, and then the next day was the sprint, which was kind of always been typically my better event for sprinting. And then the swim got canceled just because of all the weather and the water choppiness and things.
Doesn't necessarily favor you.
No.
Considered you'd probably be, in our age group, probably be one of the first, out of the water.
Yeah. So that hurt me doing. I am thankful they did, a 2 mile run on the front end and a 2 mile run on the back end versus, New Orleans years prior, they did a 5K run on the front end and a 3K on the back end. So, that was a little bit better in that regard. But it meant that I was going to have to push real hard for the whole time, and it probably wasn't going to be where I wanted to be wise on stuff. So, but it ended up working out regardless. And so got a spot for Switzerland Worlds this year in 2019, or this coming year.
This will be your third time, right?
Going
to Worlds?
Yeah. Yep. First was Amsterdam, and then Australia, Gold Coast, and then Lausanne, Switzerland this year. So, and it's been a fun, just the Worlds thing in general. My parents were always big on traveling growing up and gave us a lot of cool experiences where I got to go to Europe and the Middle East and a bunch of cool stuff. So, and that's one thing I've loved about this is, Laura Kate comes with us and looks at all the travel stuff, and my 87-year-old grandfathers come to all these races, these world events, awesome. And my parents are coming this year and stuff. So it's been kind of a cool family experience too, and a good travel.
A reason to go somewhere new, somewhere cool.
Exactly. Yep.
And even better when you get to race.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. I think that's the best part. I think doing the race, and then we hang out, and Laura Kate likes it too. We'll hang out for like a week afterwards and do stuff.
And then you really enjoy the time after too, because you've hit that goal.
Yep.
And now you can kind of celebrate all the training, all the fitness that you build, the dedication you had going into it. You have this, it's almost like a big party that you can, that downtime that you may not have taken otherwise.
Yeah.
So after Worlds, we kind of talked a little bit, and it kind of came up that you might want to do aquabike nationals. Just to have because at that point we weren't necessarily sure you were going to have a spot for Lausanne, and then the multisport festival is in Spain.
Yes, for the long distance USAT or the half Ironman distance or the aquabike or the long course duathlon
also. So we kind of talked about it, and we weren't even sure if it was going to happen, like if you were going to get to go because of work and
just a bunch of stuff. So it's a busy time of the year.
I think at that point, it wasn't a big focus because your season had already been so long. And it was kind of like work was starting to take over a little bit. Busier time at there, and but we knew you had good swim fitness, and you're hanging on to some good bike fitness pretty much year round. So we kind of just decided, let's if you can get time off work and whatnot,
make it work.
and let's give it a shot. So inevitably it turned out pretty good. So just I go through kind of the whole, kind of just real quick go over that experience, because one, you borrowed a bike. You weren't even on your own bike.
Thanks, Derek.
Shout out Derek Morgan.
Well, Derek and Casey both live down there, like 30 minutes from the race site.
Our coach Casey.
Coach Casey. And they let me crash with them. Derek let me borrow his bike, which was actually previously Newberry's bike, time trial bike. So that was nice. I didn't have to ship a bike, and I'd never shipped my TT bike and taken it all apart. So, wanted to kind of do something a little bit different too. And I knew, we started the season, Rebel Man was in April, and at this point it's November. So, long season of racing, kind of getting a little, tired and worn out feeling, but wanted to do something different and like not having to run, which is my weakest of the three events, was nice. And I remember even like finishing that course, I was like so thankful that I don't have to run. Because I think that weekend it was mid-80s in Miami, and it was like Laura Kate was putting up the Christmas tree here in Memphis, saying it was 32 degrees, and I'm like sweating walking to the car, down to Miami and stuff. So I was very, very thankful that I didn't have to do a run afterwards.
And traditionally, like myself, we both don't do really well in
heat,
super hot, humid conditions. Especially on the run. So it was it didn't necessarily play in your favor to have those conditions, but the fact that we didn't have to run in those conditions was, we're used to it. We're used to the conditions for the most part, but it's just when you get to that run and it just sits on you. There's not as much airflow.
Beating you down a lot more. Yeah, absolutely.
So kind of jump into the race a little bit.
So race started really early. It was a very early race. I think it's our wave was the first wave. I think it went off at 6:15, so it was still dark outside, and it started like storming and raining that morning, pretty much right up until the race started. So like I remember I already had bike in transition. Swim hadn't opened yet to be able to swim, so I was like, all right, I'll go run. And I just remember running in the rain for a little bit, and going out and doing the swim. It was a mass start swim, which I prefer. We had a good group that started off. I think think I stayed about 10th, 11th on the swim. A lot of kind of the first 10 people were kind of all spread out in between. And then we had a pretty good group. It was me and another guy. And then I think we kind of separated from that group, and me and him pretty much stayed together. It was 2 laps of the swim, which is fun because you get out and you can kind of see what's going on and where people are. But it's also, all right, you just swam this course, you can swim it again. But the second lap going through, now we're mixing in with everyone else on the later waves. So now you're starting to have to zigzag through people and stuff. So pretty decent swim. I think I was 31 and change on the swim. It had a little bit long, but for an open water, I was happy with it. I think it was like a 1:30 pace-ish on the swim. Got out of the water, got on the bike, like I said, borrowed Derek's bike. So a little bit different fit, adjusted it a little bit. I raised his seat up probably 2 inches or so, maybe 2.5 inches, but I didn't push the seat forward in retrospect, and did some pre-ride stuff on it and it seemed fine. And I think the first hour felt really good. First hour felt great. The guy that I did most of the swim with, him and I kind of rabbited back and forth on the bike for that first hour, and I think we were probably about a 25 average, maybe 25 and a half. And then the second hour, about an hour 45 in, I started feeling a little rough and just tightness in the shoulders and neck, and just I think I was stretched out too really far. So I think my average probably dropped for that second hour into mid 23. And then like the last ended up being, I think, 2 hours and 25-minute bike. The last 25 minutes was just miserable for me. And I was just gonna be over. Oh yeah, I remember even mentally in my head, because it was the bike course was an out, and then it was a big kind of square rectangle that you do 2 laps of, and then you come back in. And I remember thinking like the out wasn't that bad going back out. So like after I did the second loop, I was like, maybe this course is short. And I think even like mentally started playing the games. I was like, oh yeah, it's probably like 5 miles short. This course is definitely going to be short. Like, yeah, you're only going to have to be here for a few more minutes. And the last 6 miles was just terrible trying to get back in. And I had just to, like, in my head, try to stay focused on just staying aero, because we were going into a headwind coming back in. But it just, my shoulders were so tight and everything. I remember even just a few times standing up and getting out of the saddle, because it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, so it's flat as a pancake out there. The only time you're getting out of the saddle is turns. Getting back up to speed. And I remember coming back in just hurting shoulder-wise and stuff, and was just like, all right. And, for this, it ends as soon as you cross the transition mat line, kind of coming into the transition area. And I was like, I don't want anyone to catch me in this last little couple of miles coming back in. So I remember getting done, like I said, and just I think I put my bike up and then laid on the ground for a little while, just because I really hadn't done a lot of harder efforts on the TT bike for that long of a time period. Most of that season was, an hour tops typically, for a race. So,
race-wise, we did plenty of 3-hour bikes.
Absolutely. But not necessarily on something where I was in aero for that extended a time pushing.
So overall, it worked out. Got the national championship jersey. Top spot on the podium. Solid.
Earned you a shout out. It actually earned you a shout out on.
Shout out.
Awesome, man. So, like the last little thing we'll get into here is just, do you have any tips for kind of time crunched people like yourself on like how to go about it or how to fit it all in? Just 1 or 2 things that.
And I think y'all have talked about this before on multiple couches too. Talking about just trying to make sure you're getting something in for sure. And then figuring out ways to do stuff, whether it be like an example, trying to fit stuff in. If I'm, here up at work and I need to go get an oil change, I'll go drop the car off and then I'll run back to the office. Now I may only get 4 miles in, but it's something that I might not have been able to do, or I like to try to go swim at lunch, but even though that's only like 30 minutes that I can typically squeeze in. But I think finding ways to make it work, And then obviously, Laura Kate makes it really easy for me too. So lets me do it. Yeah, double shout out. Lets me. She knows that the training I do is a priority and for me in my life, and that frankly, if I don't get it done, I get grumpy. Kind of like what we had talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So she takes care of me.
And that kind of thing you're talking about, like going and dropping the car off and running back, like it takes planning. But I think people like tell themselves they don't have time.
Yes.
And those are the type of things that you can take advantage of, those small blocks.
Yeah.
And you can get in some decent training.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, in just those, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, even one thing I've kind of figured out, even here, where my office is located, we're in Piperton, pretty much, Fayette County out here, and I live in East Memphis. So like if I leave work at 4:30, I beat a lot of traffic going home. If I leave work at 5, I'm going to get stuck in traffic going home, and it'll probably take twice as long. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll bring my run stuff with me, and we've got a little pond with a track around it out back, and I'll just do my workout immediately after work instead of going home and then doing my workout. Because I may, kind of sit around for a little while, and you find the stuff that the chores or the distractions or the things that keep you from doing it that get in your mind. You're like, I could push this off. I'll make it up another day or whatever.
Yeah.
So...
Cool.
Yeah, but being prepared and having it helps a lot.
All right, last thing. What's next?
2019 kind of goal stuff. I'll do a lot of the short stuff again, but Chattanooga half Ironman in May will probably be the first kind of goal race. Probably first race of the year will probably be Rebel Man again, I think.
Let's get that transition down.
Yes. Yep. Well, I'm definitely
no whammies.
Definitely, no whammies. No
whammies this time.
But I'm excited to go back again for that one for sure. I love Oxford and going down there. But then age group nationals in Ohio. I'll double up into the sprint and the Olympic again. I like doing that. And then Worlds is I guess less than a month after that. I think it's 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's
after that.
Pretty close together.
Yeah, I think it's 3 weeks after that. I think I saw that. My race for the Draft Legal Sprint's on the 31st of August. So yeah, I think that's 3 weeks just about.
Pretty quick turnover, but it's actually not a bad setup when you think about it. You're jumping in from a similar scenario, or you're getting in a really solid training, at least a training weekend with nationals, and then you springboard that into. I know most of the time we focus on nationals, and then we just do Worlds because we want you to have fun.
Absolutely.
That type of thing. So awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you giving your time. We appreciate you
sharing the couch.
Thank you.
Appreciate your employer here allowing us to come in and hang out in this on this nice couch in this nice boardroom for.
My last shout out to you guys is just that I think the thing that this is strength for you guys as coaches that's always been great for me is working with the schedule. One thing I've always loved is I can say, Dale, all right, here's January coming up. I'm going to be traveling this dates. We're going to have, if it's like during Christmas time, I'll talk about Christmas parties and stuff like that, and you plan the workouts around that. And I appreciate that from you guys because it makes it a lot easier to get the stuff done and still have a life.
Sure.
And that's important.
That's a big thing of what we try to, at the point where it's taking over every part of your life, it's not fun anymore.
Exactly.
So,
that's not sustainable.
We might, if you do that training, you may make a slight faster progress, but you also may burn out and not want to do it anymore. So one of our main goals is to keep you wanting to do the training. It doesn't really help us if you decide one day
to not do it,
to not want to train anymore. So yeah, I mean that's a huge part of what we do is just working around whatever you have. I mean,
life management.
Yeah.
So
huge.
Awesome.
Cool.
We appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us today, watching. If you have any questions for Phillip, you're not going to find him on Instagram. So
you can find his hashtag. Instagramless Philly.
Check out
right?
Instagramless
That's it.
Philly.
That's it. Yep.
Hashtag.
Right. We'll catch you guys next time. Adios.
Peace.